All right, have you ever had to move your home studio or, God forbid, a commercial recording studio with all your gear and all of your stuff, and you don't know where to start, or you're stressed out about all of the stuff, what's gonna happen, how do you do it, how do you keep track of everything? If you didn't see, we just moved studios into this really awesome new space, and it was amazing, super fun. And then a week later, we moved out of that space into this space. This is a temporary space. Why did you move? Well, it's complicated. Basically, I'll just say that space sadly did not work out. Now, I had to get out of there like immediately, and I needed to go somewhere else. So we moved into this spot, which was always a temporary spot, which just sucks. Moving studios, if you've moved your studio before, it sucks. What we're gonna do is we're finally moving out of this temporary space that we've been in for, wait for it, 3 weeks. We're now gonna move out into what will hopefully be a more permanent studio. So with all of this unnecessary moving that's happening, I wanna share some of the things that we've learned along the way. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start packing up this studio and move into the new place. But along this process, I'm gonna share some tips with you so that if you're ever in a situation where you have to move your studio, hopefully you can learn some things from our experience moving, that's right, 3 times within 5 weeks, about how to do it as painless as possible. Pain-free, painless, as smooth as possible. Because every single step of moving either your home or studio sucks. Okay, so essentially how we're gonna do this is we're going to talk about the different things you're gonna need to move your studio. Then we're gonna talk about creating categories for moving your studio, and then how to execute those categories in an order that actually makes the process easy. So what we're gonna start with is a category of things that I call oddball stuff. And an oddball category can be everything from lamps in the studio to like some furniture pieces that are kind of furniture to, I got all these like fake plants and stuff, all the way to instruments. I mean, instruments should have cases. If you have a studio and you're a musician, get cases for your instruments. But if you're me, I have some cases for some instruments. So I have to put some of those other instruments into the oddball category because I don't have cases for them. Now, what does that mean? That means, one, all of these oddball things are actually gonna get unplugged and packed first. Why? So they're out of the way. And so I can make space for the things that are actually going to go in boxes. The other thing that you need to consider with random things that you have in the studio, notepads. You know what I mean? Like just random, like tape. I have paintbrushes, vacuum, you know, just odd and end things that don't really fall into like a cables or microphone or stands category. Those are the things that are also the most frustrating to put into a moving truck because they don't necessarily fit into a box all the time, and then you can't really just like put them in the truck because they're gonna get messed up. So these are the things we're gonna take out, and I'm actually just gonna put in my car, and I will just drive them there separately before we do like the big move. So if you can, get your oddball stuff all together, throw it in the car, take it over there on its own, separate from the moving truck, because we're trying to make space for all of the things that are gonna go into boxes and go in the moving truck. That's category 1. Speaking of boxes, let's talk about some things that you're gonna need for your move. I'm gonna blow your mind here. Get some boxes. Another thing that's really useful is tubs. Tubs are super helpful in moving this kind of stuff. They're a lot more durable than boxes. So we've got a few tubs that we're gonna use. Boxes, tubs, packing tape, some way to label your packages or your boxes or tubs. Painter's tape's really good, Sharpie, and cases for your instruments. All those things are super huge. Now, this is probably something that it's too late for you to do. I have started doing it a couple years ago, which is keeping the original boxes for gear that you have. If you're able to do that, maybe you will just put your gear back in the original boxes and move them. We're not gonna do that because that's just too much It's too much stuff. I have a crazy amount of boxes for things. So what we're gonna do is we'll actually pack up the equipment that goes in original boxes in the tubs, and we will just layer some packaging around them to keep them safe, but that way we can get a lot in each box and tub and move them faster. All right, we're gonna interrupt this to share another special tip for moving. This is probably one of the most important tips, which is stop everything and eat. Food is going to make everything better because moving is just a persistent series of suckiness. And stopping and sitting down and eating makes it better. So while we eat, I'm gonna tell you about the sponsor of this video, our friends at Sweetwater. If you have a studio, you're a musician, songwriter, whatever, content creator now, they even have a content creator section. Sweetwater's gonna have everything you need on that website, and it's organized super well to be able to find everything that you need. Speaking of, I work in studios and move my studios every other week. I have, under this video, just a list of different categories of the things that we use in my studio. So if you wanna check those links out, you can see the different lists of itemized equipment that I either have and use in my studio or have used. Those are affiliate links. So if you pick anything up from Sweetwater, I get a little percentage, supports the channel. Videos like this pays for the food that we get to eat, and we greatly appreciate it because moving trucks and food. All right, well, I guess let's get back to it. Oh, well, we're gonna eat first, but then we'll get back to it. Next category is going to be everything that can be put and fit into a box or a tub. Now that the oddball stuff's gone, I'm talking about microphones, microphone cases, shock mounts, DI boxes, guitar pedals, anything that's small and compact like that, and hopefully you have some of those original boxes that you can put those things in. If not, just throw some blankets or something, paper towels, newspapers, grocery bags work really well. Once you have microphones off of your stands, you've got your stands, you've got cabling and all that stuff, but I would clear all that out of the way first. And I would also, with microphones, I would box up speakers next, because in our case, the cables are running back behind the desk, through the desk, behind the speakers. So if we get the speakers off the stand, get them boxed up out of the way, it's gonna be a lot easier to move on to the next category of cabling and snakes. Now we have multiple rooms of stage boxes in there. Out here, we have all sorts of snakes running everywhere. There's a bunch of mic cables in the tracking room. There's some mic cables out here. So I would break those up into their own boxes or tubs, being snakes probably. There's gonna eventually be microphone cable box, instrument cable box, speaker cable, stuff like that. That will be its own category. And then when we get back to here, we'll take out all of the DB25 snakes that are going to all the upward equipment, and that will be its own category. I'm gonna mention it several times in this video, but I will just foreshadow it. Label your DB25s. Label your snakes. If you are using a patch bay or upward equipment, label the snakes that are going to the gear exactly how you're using them on both sides of the snake. This is going to make setting everything back up infinitely easier, because you're just gonna look and see exactly where it goes. You're gonna see the exact run. It's gonna work. It's gonna be the right one. It's gonna make your life a lot easier. Once we've got all the cables and snakes packed up in their boxes and tubs, then we can move on to, in my situation, the bigger sort of instrument adjacent things. Keyboards, guitar amps, stuff like this, aux box and or drum machines, synth stuff. After the amps and the random extra instrument pieces are going to be the actual outboard equipment and rack mounted gear. We've already got the snakes picked up, taken apart, packed up, and now we can just take out the rack gear that's in the racks, put those in their tubs, package them safely, really safely, and then just remember that your life's savings are in these tubs, and be careful with them when you load them in there. Make sure they're safe. Be careful. But if you've done each one of these steps right, then theoretically taking the gear out and boxing it up will be quite simple. Now, after all the outboard gear, all the snakes, all the mics, cables, instruments, amps, speakers are all packed up, then we're left with our last couple of categories. And those categories are essentially studio furniture. I'm talking studio desk, studio racks, probably like keyboard stands, speaker stands, stuff like that. And then the very last couple of things are larger furniture or furniture adjacent, like rugs, roll up the rugs. And then for us, we've got the acoustic treatment panels, which we have some small panels and then we have some big panels. My plan is to actually move my desk and racks taken apart in my car, because you can actually take them apart in such small pieces and I can fit them in the back of my SUV. And when you do this, get some Ziploc bags and keep every single screw or nut or washer that you're using, put it in the Ziploc bag, label that bag, outboard rack, desk hardware. That way, when you get to the new place and you unload your rack pieces and your studio desk pieces, you've got a bag right next to it. That's all the hardware you're gonna need. And on top of that, when you pack the hardware, also just pack the size socket or Allen key or whatever tool you have to use for it. Just put it with it so that you don't have to go hunting for it again. And that way you can just immediately put it together, super easy. So following the steps and tips that I have given so far, I just want to explain a couple little things now that I'm in this new space, how it has benefited setting everything up again. Okay, the first thing is just being really organized and having some sort of system to this whole madness. Categories of stuff in order for when and why you do those different categories, both packing and unpacking and setting up. All of that has been monumental in making this as painless as possible. Moving, just, I've said it 5 times in this video, it sucks, but I will say each one of these tips has made a big difference to each move and is very important, at the very least, for keeping track of your stuff and being able to put it together and know where everything is and why. Now, as far as putting everything back together, because I have this whole system for my studio, and I'll just summarize it as, you know, patch bay labels. I know how the patch bay is going to be labeled. I know every snake that's going to go into every section of the patch bay. I know the lengths. Every snake is labeled on both sides, so I already know where it's going. I already know why it's going there. The patch bay label and flow is designed to have the most optimal normaling for how I'm going to use my studio. Now, this is something that's always going to be personal and sort of subjective to how you are going to use your studio. But the way that I use mine is designed so that I know exactly where every single thing is going to go and why. So as I put the snakes back in the racks and run them to the desk and to the places that they're going to go, everything is labeled, so I can just literally grab it, look and see, desk 500 left. One side of this is going to go right here out of the outboard rack. The other side is going to go to the left side of the desk where I run the 500 lunchbox, which is XLRs, inputs and outputs. Now, because connecting outboard gear can be a bit overwhelming, specifically if you have a lot of gear, this makes it go a lot faster and it makes it much more stress-free. I like to listen to podcasts and stuff while I do this, and the labels really help make this go by a lot faster. Between my converters that I have up to 64 IO, so there are a lot of snakes that are just going between the patch bays and the converters. How and why, I've talked about that in other videos. You can go check those videos out if you'd like. Now, by following my plan and my system that I had, putting all this together, literally wiring up an entire studio, again from scratch, is actually quite simple and went together quite fast. Now, I'm gonna do a little shameless plug here. One of the things that I have available on my website are these consultations. People who watch these videos who are going through something similar will book them. It's just basically a call with me, and they ask questions about setting up their studio, what's the best way to do it. Sometimes they'll ask about gear, sometimes they'll ask about acoustic treatment, room flow, layout, all sorts of stuff like that. I don't particularly love how much of experience I have. I have too much experience in all of this stuff. And I think the one benefit of it is I just know how to do it in a way that is simple And if you need help with anything like that, you can go check out my website, andrewmastersmusic.com. Consultations on there. There's obviously several other things on there. So now that we got this whole house as a studio, we got multiple rooms, control room, live room, probably a second live room, maybe third artist lounge. There's a lot of space, and we even have that B room upstairs that I used to be in. We'll see what happens with that, but I think the goal from this move going forward is to actually book this studio out. I'll be engineering, sometimes producing. We'll see how it goes. I have our first session booked literally in a week. Based on, I don't know, it might already be done by the time you're seeing this, but I'm super excited for it. I'm really looking forward to the future. Out of all these moves and all of the chaos from this year, I will just say, you know, you gotta keep going. If you're in a situation where you're facing adversity, just keep going. There's nothing you can do. There's no alternative when hard, unpredictable things happen. You just gotta keep going and figure it out. And that has been kind of the theme of this year. It has been quite challenging, and I'm really, really optimistic and looking forward to the future. Incredibly grateful for you for watching these videos. I hope you guys get a lot of value from this. Try to give and squeeze every drop of value out of moving these studios, and there are these little things that we've learned along the way, and I just figured that I'd share it with you. So hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you like whatever this is. If you're an artist or a band and you're looking to record in Nashville, hit us up. Go to the website, drop us an email. I'll put links to all that down in the description. Thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one.